everyone, welcome to Oslo. My name is Ekaterina.
And I'm Stian.
And we are Viking guides here in the Norwegian capital.
And it's our pleasure to welcome you to the beautiful city of Oslo. And we're going to show you some of the highlights that our city has to offer.
We start our tour here on the top of the hill, right in front of the royal palace.
And this is the home of our beloved king and queen. And they reside here from around September to May. And then they move out of the city to their summer home.
This city has a lot to offer, so sit back, relax, and be prepared to enjoy some fantastic legends and facts from Oslo. So I know that Norway is a country of the great kings and queens, and this is definitely one of them.
It is. This is Olav V, Olav V, and he was the father of our current king, Harald. And this man, he is known to be the king of the people. And that's also why he's down on the ground, because he's not standing on a socket.
Or sitting on the horse.
Exactly. And this came to be in around 1973 when there was an oil crisis here in Norway and was not allowed to drive during the weekends. And then Olav decided to go skiing up in the hillside.
Oh yes, he loves skiing.
He did, by the ski jump. And then he decided to just take the tram, like an ordinary man, basically.
A king!
A king, and that's basically how he became known as the king of the people. But also his father, who was a king during the Second World War, also kind of got this nickname to be king of the people. And our current one, Harald, he is much beloved here in Norway, and I think the monarchy is safe for years to come. Når det kommer turister til Kon-Tiki og Vigeland, vil alle sammen dra.
We are now on the main promenade of Oslo. It's a long and beautiful street, and there's so many things to explore.
It is, and that's why we sang you folks this little tune, because basically the lyrics means that it is fun on Karl Johan. And Karl Johan is a name of a king. And he was actually a Frenchman. And he became king of Sweden, and we entered a union with the Swedes and so on. And we decided just to keep the name, to keep it simple, basically. And along this promenade, you will have cafes, you have shops, whatever you feel like.
I feel like shopping for sure.
Yes, always. And maybe the most important day throughout the year, the 17th of May.
Oh, this is the time when we all dress up and go.
In our folk costumes. And that's our national day. We celebrate our constitution basically from 1814. And unlike many other nations around in Europe, around the world basically, we don't celebrate it by military. This is with children, with children's parade, and then we're coming up marching the main street here towards the palace, which is at the top, and the king and his family will be on the balcony waving to the crowd. And this is a tradition that dates back to the mid-1800s.
Oh, it's a lovely idea, because children are the future. We don't want more weapons.
Sure. That's what we're trying to maybe illustrate by having this children's parade.
And after all, Norway is the place where the Nobel Peace Prize is awarded.
Yes, that's correct.
So, City Hall here in Oslo is the main administrative building, but it's absolutely beautiful inside, because more than 20 Norwegian artists from the 20th century participated in decorating it, among others Edvard Munch. And there are many cultural events that are taking place inside. You have a Nobel Peace Prize that is awarded each and every year on the 10th of December, and lots of exhibitions, and also civil weddings.
That's correct. And civil baptisms as well. And nowadays, the official sign for an engagement or a marriage would be a wedding ring, of course.
Yes, sure, what else?
Yeah. Well, I present to you a manglebord.
What is it?
It's my proposal gift to you.
A proposal gift?
Yes.
What do you do with that?
It's an ironing.
Oh, an iron board, of course. So you're basically asking me to iron your shorts
Yes.
to the rest of my days.
Well, yes, pretty much.
It's beautiful, but no thank you.
Are you sure?
I'm afraid so.
Okay. So when a man presented this to his beloved one and she refused, he had to put it back on the wall.
But it's like a punishment.
It is. And there's stories about men that had up to 10 of these hanging on their walls.
Oh, poor guys.
Yes, but they're quite beautiful. And they should be hand carved, of course, because you didn't have machinery back in the day. We're now talking not like 2 decades ago, we're talking a couple of 100 years ago back in the day. But this is beautifully decorated with rose painting. And each valley of Norway will have kind of different color scheme. Telemark, for instance, would have beautiful red and greens, and Setesdal would have a little bit more of yellowish. And do you recognize this on the top?
No, not immediately.
It's a horse.
Of course, a true stud.
Yes, and also the symbol for strength and power, and was probably the most important tool you had on a farm back in the day. So now I'm gonna go home and put this on my wall.
I'm sorry. I know that Oslo is over 1,000 years old, so it must be a lot of history here.
There's a lot of history here in the city, and the best traces of it actually of times gone by is the old fortress here on the other side of the bay. And we have 2 major bay areas here in Oslo, the east and the west. And here on the west side, overlooking the fjord, is the old medieval fortress.
I heard it is over 700 years old.
That's true. The first time we hear about it is in June 1300. And then we know someone is residing here, and that was a man called Håkon V Magnusson and his queen Euphemia. And they were the last royal couple of independent Norway before we went into different unions with our dear neighbors, the Swedes and the Danes.
But are there any kings in the fortress at the moment?
No, the fortress is abandoned from royalties, and it is now the military that resides inside these walls. And the way it looks today is from around the 1600s. Then the Danish king, since we were in union with Denmark back then, decided he needed somewhere to reside when he came to visit, and he redid the entire fortress into a Renaissance castle that you see here behind me.
I heard that many historical places are haunted.
Oh yeah, and this is also haunted. Different ghosts. You can come here and you can have walks that will show you the spirits of people that used to reside here back in the day. I haven't been to one of these, but apparently you're supposed to see and feel different things.
So, Stian, do tell me, where are we today?
Well, right now we are at one of the mountaintops that surrounds the city, one of 5 hills. And we're standing at an area called Ekeberg, and just look at these beautiful surroundings that you see in front of us.
It is breathtaking. You can see all the mountains and even the snow on the top of it.
A little bit of sprinkle on the top, which is always nice. And then right behind us we have the old Navy Academy, dating back to 1917. It's not that old, but it looks very medieval.
It does, and it is over 100 years old.
That's correct. And it's nowadays a high school actually. And on these grounds, right behind the high school, we have some of the oldest settlements here in the city, dating back over 5,000 years old. So this is where the first Oslo citizens settled down back then.
Well, do you mean to say that people were living in this cold climate already 5,000 years ago?
Indeed. And I bet it was pretty much colder back then as well.
Oh wow, no wonder that Norwegians have so many useful inventions to survive the cold. For example, these ones.
Yeah, those look weird. What is it?
This is so-called fishermen's mittens. So they're particularly popular in the northern part of Norway. And what you do after the mitten is ready, you put it in the boiled water and then they shrink.
Okay.
So they will be extra thick and warm. And you see there are 2 compartments for the thumbs.
Yes, I see that.
Indeed. When you are at sea and when you want to put over the fish net, it's very often you get a cut over here.
Uh-huh.
So to survive and to continue doing your job, you can simply turn it around just like that.
That's clever.
Isn't it?
So smart.
So, as a true fisherman's wife, this is my gift to you.
Awesome, thank you. I need these today, believe me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So,
are you enjoying the oak hill so far?
Absolutely, but I don't see a single oak here.
No, that's true. And I guess we can blame it on the Vikings.
On the Vikings?
Yeah, because the Vikings, as you may know, build ships by using oak. And oak became so popular in the shipbuilding industry that we exported tons of it up until the 1600s.
I see.
We shipped it to United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Denmark. And unfortunately nowadays almost no oak trees left, and the ones that are left in Norway are actually listed and protected.
Oh wow, but there are lots of beautiful pine trees here.
It is. It's a beautiful scenery.
Yes, well, do you care to go for a walk in the sculpture park?
Oh, absolutely. Where do we get the tickets?
Well, that's the thing, you don't need a ticket at all. Just look around. In this very forest you will find over 30 fantastic sculptures.
Really?
Yes, indeed.
Wow.
You'll find Salvador Dali and Auguste Renoir and Rodin's sculptures. And there is one amazing piece of art just behind you. Look around.
She don't look familiar, but I saw a little sign with her name. And I'm proud to inform you that this is Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, really?
A Norwegian.
Norwegian? Was she Norwegian?
Yes, she was actually. Well, semi. She was half Norwegian. Her dad was Norwegian. So it's a little bit claim to fame on our part.
Okay, so this is how the blondes came in fashion.
Yeah, you can say that.
I see. So right now we are in the former headquarters of the shipping company American Linian. And thanks to them, thousands of Norwegian passengers traveled across the Atlantic Ocean. Today with me I have Marty, who is part of the team who helped rejuvenating this place. And he will tell us all he knows about the history. Right, Martin?
Do you have about 3 hours for that? Because
Yes.
there's a lot of history in this place.
I love to learn more, definitely.
No, this is a warm welcome. This is, as you said, the former headquarters of the Norwegian American Line. This house was built in 1919 and really represents a new era in Oslo, and especially this area. It actually opened up 7 years after the maiden voyage of the first ship that went over the Atlantic from Norway, Christiania Fjord. And this house represented really new hopes and new dreams for thousands of Norwegians. We're talking about close to 1 million Norwegians traveled across the Atlantic in search for a better life over there. Many of them gathered in Brooklyn, New York, many in the Midwest, in Minnesota especially, North Dakota. But back to Brooklyn, there actually was close to 400,000 Norwegians at one point. And was really, there's a street there in the middle of Brooklyn that was actually nicknamed Lapskaus Boulevard. So that's really an interesting story. Right now we're in Haven. Haven used to be sort of like a traditional courtyard in any kind of given building in Oslo. But we brought it back to life using some of the beautiful features that these rooms offer.
It definitely feels grand.
Absolutely. And there's a few things that I want to touch upon, especially when it comes to the tiles in here. On the walls, original 1919 tiles, the orange bright color also gave a lot of story to our branding. We drew a lot of inspiration to our color palettes when we reopen as a hotel. Some of the windows that you see around here are actually sort of shaped as a window in a cabin on a ship.
Yeah, it gives you a feeling that you're actually sitting in the cabin on the ship.
Yes, absolutely. And here we also put a glass ceiling above it to give it that all year round garden feeling, backyard. So, and also behind us here, one of my favorite features with the hotel, original wood doors from 1919. I like to say that it kind of represents the entrance to the new dreams and new stories that these passengers were about to embark on. And we had to move them slightly from the original position where they were angled, but now we have them here more as a decorative piece in the middle of haven.
I can't think of a better place to take a cup of coffee in the middle of my tour here in Oslo than right here.
Absolutely, perfect place for a cup of coffee. Just wind back with a glass of wine maybe. But I also highly recommend an insider tips is the weekends we have a fantastic jazz brunch in Atlas. And one of the most popular things is to ask for a table out there in Haven during that brunch.
Sounds right.
Yes, absolutely.
So I don't know about you, Martin, but I like to start the morning with a cup of coffee or tea, and I heard Norwegians love coffee.
Coffee is it's like in the second religion here. Everybody drinks a lot of coffee. It's part of the culture, both when it comes to waking up in the morning, but also throughout the day in the workplace. A lot of the brightest ideas are developed during the coffee breaks.
I can agree on that.
Yeah, so in Oslo you can really embark on some of the best coffee places that Northern Europe has to offer.
And you don't need to go far to find something beautiful. I know that right now we are in the middle of everything.
Absolutely. We commonly refer to this as the perfect starting point to explore Oslo. You can throw a stone over to the Norwegian Opera House, which is right over here in Bjørvika behind us. It's a short walk up to the Norwegian Royal Castle. You have some of the greatest shopping in Oslo, just about 5 to 10 minutes walk from here.
That.
So this is the perfect starting point for a beautiful journey in Oslo.
Or if you want to have a lazy afternoon and you don't want to walk too far, I know you can just go outside and there will be so many sculptures, beautiful things to look at, and one of the symbols of Oslo is actually located right outside here.
Absolutely, one of the most famous statues in Oslo, and one of the reasons why Norway is called the Tiger Town, or was nicknamed the Tiger Town. We have a beautiful tiger outside our building, which is a statue that represents the story, a story from Norwegian poet Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson, and yeah.
Well, I hope you will not find any real-life tigers outside here. It's a safe city to walk around, right?
Absolutely.
So I know that for many passengers, Oslo is a starting point for discovering of Norway. But I also know that Oslo was the beginning of new life for many immigrants from Norway.
Absolutely. And in this room where we are right now, we try to capture some of that essence in the journey. This is called the Vista Room, named after the last ship that left from Oslo over to New York, Vistafjord, MS Vistafjord. And this room is actually one of the most unique rooms in the building. This used to be the receptionist area, and as you may see from the ceiling above us, it's one of those landmarked ceilings that we of course would wanted to preserve in the process. We talk about this room as a sort of a little bit of a library feeling to it. We have some original things from the ships that we gather along the journey as we reopen as a hotel. Still to this day we receive letters and mail with original things from the boats. I refer to this phone call I got 2 weeks ago where a lady that actually called me and said she found menus from Stavangerfjord in 1925, and this represents the breakfast on board 30th of May 1925 on Stavangerfjord. So these are some of the items that we keep in here in our little cabinet back here. And we also have passengers list from the 1930s. We have silverware and cutlery. So for special interest, we keep them there. This room also sort of represents an important part of the journey for a lot of the immigrants that travel over to the US and New York. This is decorated as, or in interior represents the train, the 1920s train culture. Early 1900s, when the first stage of the journey for the emigrants was to get on board a train and come in here to Christiania, which Oslo was named at that time. And they came in with the train, which stopped right outside the building here, and that was the first leg. So the room here is decorated as a train coupe, a train cart rather, and really a special room in our building, and for our guests, in-house guests, to enjoy and find some peace in.
I know that up until today, one of the best way of exploring Norway is on train, and the train ride connecting Oslo to Bergen is one of the most beautiful in the world. Is that true?
Absolutely. We in Norway, we have something called Norway in a Nutshell, which is probably more famous outside of Norway's borders than it is in Norway, because I don't think a lot of Norwegians know about it. But we do get a lot of travelers from abroad coming to Norway, and they travel to the west coast to experience some of the fjords over there with the train.
But I know that Oslo as a city is unique because by subway you can get up in the mountains in the area of Holmenkollbakken, where you can go skiing.
Absolutely. When you take the subway in Oslo and the mass or the public transportation, it's not uncommon that you meet somebody with cross-country skis or a full snowboard gear on as they are going up to Tryvann, which is a little area next to Holmenkollen, which is actually a really good ski resort area where a lot of Oslo citizens have their season pass, so they enjoy it the winter through and can go skiing. And then outside surrounding Oslo rather, I'm sorry, you have Østmarka and Nordmarka and Vestmarka, which represent the forest around Oslo, where you have miles and miles of cross-country paths to embark on.
And I noticed that you can actually almost experience several seasons while in one city. So in a downtown area, it can be summer, but up in the mountains, it can be winter already with the snow.
Absolutely. You have just a couple of hours outside Oslo, you can have full-on winter in May and beautiful spring weather and summer here in Oslo. So you get a little bit of all seasons here.
So it seems like the history here is truly in the walls.
Absolutely. We do speak a lot about the history in the walls here. And I'm so glad we're made it up to one of our fantastic guest rooms up here. Mm-hmm. And in this guest room, you'll actually find some of the original parts that we found as we started a renovation from an old office building into an hotel.
But original means that they are 100 years old.
Absolutely. Up until 100 years old, actually older than that as well.
Oh, wow.
We actually here have a menu from 1913, the maiden voyage of Christiania Fjord, where we have a menu for that maiden voyage. And today we actually have a menu based downstairs for private events that are based on this very menu.
I bet it was something good on this menu and something exotic.
Absolutely. Well, you found some Norwegian classics like smoked salmon, of course.
Oh, I love that.
Exactly, who doesn't? And you also have a really fresh pineapple, which today might seem like a very normal and standard thing to have in your drawer, canned or fresh. But actually at that time, that was a very exotic fruit, and not a lot of countries in Europe had that offering on their restaurant menu. So that was in 1913. We also have a picture here of Stavangerfjord. Which was where we have a drawing of F-deck, and we also have original receipts and cargoes, maps of New York back from 1913. So I just wanted to touch upon one more thing with the maiden voyage of Christiania Fjord in 1913.
Of course, the more stories the better.
Absolutely, we have this beautiful menu there, and on board from Oslo to Bergen, mm-hmm. the Norwegian royal family, as well as the Norwegian government, regjeringen, mm-hmm. were on board on the same ship, which would probably not happen in 2019 or 2020.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine nowadays.
No, exactly. You would never put them, because if something happened, who would run the country? But back then, that was a normal thing, and they were all there to embrace the maiden voyage of Christiania Fjord in 1913.
Speaking about ships, I've heard that Norwegians actually at some point gave a ship as a present to their king.
Absolutely, they did, and that ship is today being used as the official kingship, kongeskip as we call it in Norway, and is docked right over on Tjuvholmen, which is an area, one of my favorite areas in the city.
And I know that it has the most patriotic name you can get, right?
Yes, it does.
Norway.
Norway.
What a dark room in the middle of Oslo. Where are we now?
Right now we're actually down in Gustav, which is used to be the basement of Norwegian American Line. This is the room where all the luggage would come in, while the passengers were buying the tickets, they would come down here with the luggage, and the luggage will wait here, get tagged before it was brought on board the ships. Today, with the reopening of American Linen back in 2019, it was of course clear to us that we had to create something out of this magnificent room, this little bit of a hidden room, and what is better than bringing in our very own New York feeling jazz club into this setting.
It feels like today it's all about music.
It is indeed, and for a lot of the passengers on the Norwegian American Line in the 50s and 60s, they traveled to New York to experience some of those dodgy, legendary jazz clubs, and for us it was important to bring some of that vibe in here to this hotel.
I think you can actually feel it here. It's a very nice atmosphere.
Absolutely, you should come here on a Friday or Saturday night. It's
you can count on it.
Yes.
So, and who's this gentleman over there?
I'm glad you asked, because this gentleman is one of the founding fathers of the Norwegian American Line. His name is Gustav Henriksen, and he was actually the first CEO of the Norwegian American Line. And without him and his diligent work back in 1910, the Norwegian American Line wouldn't have been founded back in 1913. So this house was built in 1919 and largely thanks to him. So we of course had to name this jazz club after him, and today you can come down and to Gustav, the jazz club, and see this beautiful drawing of Gustav brought to life by Anette Moy.
So we have to thank him for an opportunity that many Norwegians have got to enjoy their life in the States.
Absolutely. After the union was over with Sweden in 1905, it was a lot of newborn proudness for Norway, and it was important for Norway to get their own company, a ship company that could take hopeful Norwegians across the Atlantic into America, and he was really one of the engines to make that happen. And in 1910, when the Norwegian American Line was founded, he then had another milestone in 1913 with the first ship going over the Atlantic with Christiania Fjord, and then in 1919 this beautiful majestic building was done, completed.
But what about today? Do Norwegians like jazz?
Surprisingly, or not surprisingly I should say, jazz is probably one of those music genres that a lot all age groups like. And today, on Fridays and Saturdays, the house is packed down here, and you'll see anything from new in love 18-year-olds up to 75-year-olds sitting holding hands and rocking out to some beautiful jazz music.
So I can expect to see you this Friday here?
Probably not this Friday, but some Fridays I'll be there.
Okay, I'll be waiting for you. Traveling around the world, I'm always looking for a special drink, and it seems like Oslo has a lot to offer.
Absolutely. One of the best cocktail cities in Northern Europe.
I heard.
So, and naturally we had to have a great cocktail bar here, and it's actually named after the first stopping place in New York for the ships, which was the dock they came to in Manhattan, Pier 42. And naturally we had to have a strong cocktail bar here.
Of course.
So one of the things that I really like to celebrate here is one of these glasses made by Hadeland Glassverk.
It's a local one, right?
Actually, yes, one of the last standing glass makers in Northern Europe. And this is actually a replica of the original glass made for the maiden voyage of Christiania Fjord in 1913. We dusted off the shelves in the archives of Hadeland Glassverk and found these glasses and made the replicas of these glasses together with Hadeland.
So it's beautiful and it has over 100 years of history, right?
Absolutely. And throughout the hotel you'll also see lamps that are made from Hadeland, and that connects the history back to the ships in 1913.
But back to the essence. Let's see what you have on the menu.
Yes, this is one of our menus. It's a special concept menu called the Decades. It celebrates the 10 decades that this building has been around for, from 1919 and up until now. There's 10 historic cocktails in there celebrating a special event in that decade that it surrounds. One of the ones I really want to touch upon is the Christmas boat, which is a cocktail that is representing the last boat that came in from New York before Christmas in the 50s and 60s. And it was always a lot of people that greeted the boat back.
Of course, it was quite an event.
Absolutely, both with the passengers but also with some of the goods that they brought in. Because we got to remember in the 50s and 60s when exotic fruits like bananas and oranges and chewing gum came on, obviously people were surrounding the ship to even get a little taste of that. So that cocktail is from the 50s and sort of celebrating that decade. We also have some of our other ones, for example the Vigelands Park, which is from the 1940s and representing and celebrating the building of one of our famous parks here in Oslo.
I mean, 200 sculptures, it is definitely a reason for celebration.
Absolutely. And then some of our latest decades where, for example, in the early 2000s, that decade we celebrate social media, which was a sort of the entrance of social media. And then the last decade up until now, where we talk about emigration and the topic that immigration has had around the world for the last decade. And it really is still, back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, Norwegians traveled abroad because they were in search of a new future, and now the ship has turned and they're coming to Northern Europe to receive those same opportunities. So.
Well, I know the discovery of oil was a large milestone in the Norwegian history, and I see you're celebrating it here with the hazelnut oil?
Absolutely. And that's oil just to represent the oil that we found, and Norway today wouldn't be the land of opportunities that it is without actually finding the oil back in the 70s. So that adventure is still going on, and in large the reason why Norway is a successful country today.
So here I can definitely get a taste of history.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome.
So going to a new city, a new type of food, fantastic local ingredients, this is what I love to explore. And now I have Ørjan right here, who is the chef of one of the most popular restaurants in the Norwegian capital. So tell me, what can we find in Oslo?
Here with us we try to incorporate our story from our building and our hotel with the immigration, using local produce as much as we can. So I put together a small selection of what we offer here. Here we have the most renowned Caesar salad that was actually created as a legend go by Caesar Cardini, an Italian immigrant with restaurants in Mexico and the US. We did our twist on the Caesar salad, of course with Norwegian ecological free-farm chicken. We add some kimchi to give it a slightly twist, and it's hugely popular.
So Norway is not only about fish, but also about good quality chicken.
It is, of course, and we're as a concept for our. We try to have some kind of storytelling during the hotel and during the restaurant, the breakfast. We take all inspiration we get from our story, basically.
Kathy, what are you doing?
Sundays and of course.
Such a beautiful day here.
Absolutely. Did you know that statistically speaking, Oslo is actually the sunny Scandinavian capital?
Really?
Yeah, so whenever it rains in Copenhagen and it's cloudy in Stockholm, we can enjoy this fantastic place.
Well, that actually fits perfectly because we're now sitting right below a sundial. And it is our pleasure to welcome you to the sculpture garden, the wonderful world of Gustav Vigeland, a world famous artist, I must say. Well, at least here in Norway. And he has created this amazing park with over 200 statues. And right behind us, this is considered to be his masterpiece. So if you would Google Oslo, the monolith that you see behind us would definitely pop up.
Well, it's made of a single piece of granite. It must be a very heavy work to do.
Oh yeah, it took several years. And it took several months just to transport it here, 140 kilometers away. Not very far, but back in the early 1920s. This took months of work.
What kind of stone they actually use?
This is granite. And Norway has a lot of different exports. Nowadays we have oil, seafood, gas. But back in the day we would have timber and granite. And this is world-renowned granite.
What's so special about it?
Well, it is very colorful and has this beautiful shimmer to it. It almost glitter a little bit in the sun. And you find this all around the world. You find it in China, you find it in Brazil, Argentina, even in the United States. You see this granite.
In New York?
Yes. How did you know? On the 7th Avenue, actually. There's a bridge, and if you stroll down there, you will see this granite.
But what is this statue is about?
Well, this is yet again the symbol of life that you will see throughout the garden and throughout the park. That is basically the theme and the red line running through it. And it is actually 17 meters high.
Yes, I heard it's 121 human body interacting in one stream of life, fighting for the
correct.
better place under the sun.
Trying to get to the top.
Absolutely.
And it took over 14 years to carve out.
14, he wasn't working alone though.
No, he had help. He handpicked stonemasons from Scandinavia and he only chose the best.
Of course.
And at the base of the monolith, you have the circle of life. 36 beautiful stone groups that all kind of interprets itself and envisions the different stages of life that you go through, from birth to death.
You know the reason why I love to come here?
Why?
It doesn't matter if I'm sad or happy, if I'm alone or with somebody. It's always something to think about.
Yep.
And I always go out of the park in better mood than I entered it.
Oh, really?
Join me.
I will.
Vigeland Sculpture Park. You know, I just love this place.
It's absolutely beautiful. This is considered to be the largest park in the world that's been created by one artist. So one man made the entire grounds. We're talking 80 acres, over 200 sculptures, bronze, granite, you name it.
Impressive.
Indeed. And this is probably one of my favorite spots in the city as well. And I love coming here during winter. For me, that is the best season because that makes the statues pop just a little bit extra with this monochrome color scheme that we see here today.
I love to come here in the summer, and do you know why?
Why?
Because right here in the park you will find the largest rose collection in whole of Norway.
Really?
14,000 plants, 150 species. And there is a particular rose that is actually called Viking.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I didn't know that. That was a
absolutely.
surprise for me.
Join me during the summer and I will tell you more.
Definitely. So right now we are sitting in the center of the garden. And if you have seen us from above, we'll be right in the middle of a Greek cross. But in the center of the park, right behind me and Catherine, we have the Circle of Life fountain. And the bowl that you see in the center, this is the source of life. And when we turn on the water on the 1st of May, that kind of flows out of the bowl. And the burden of life as well being held up by these 6 giants that you see there. And then surrounding the base, we have some of our favorites here in the park. And that is the Circle of Life in many ways, from beginning to the end. And you can interpret this many ways and interpret this however you want, but I know that you have a favorite among these statues.
Well, absolutely. I love everything that celebrates life, but I know there are lots of complications. and many statues here are the proof of it. For example, the one behind you represents a woman and a man meeting each other in the middle of the tree of life. Surely proving that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, but you see they're meeting each other on the level of their eyes and heads, and nobody knows what will happen next. The life nowadays is changing. So I noticed that Oslo has a lot of symbols, and this is one of them.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is known as Sinnataggen.
The angry boy. What's the story?
Sinnataggen translates to angry child or angry boy in this case. And this is probably the most famous statue in the entire city, and also the most famous statue in the entire sculpture garden that we're located in right now. And the story goes that Gustav Vigeland, the artist behind the entire park, he was sitting at the train station in Paris and he had chocolate in his suitcase. And he saw this boy and he thought, what happens if I give chocolate to the child and I take it away immediately right after?
Oh, that would definitely make me angry.
Exactly. And this is what happens with us as well.
We are only 5 minutes away from the Royal Palace, and here you can enjoy such a beautiful place and tranquility. And many art museums. For example, the one behind me is a contemporary art museum, and you can find the famous statue of Michael Jackson by Jeff Koons.
The one in gold?
Absolutely, it's right here.
Nice.
And you can find also some pieces by Damien Hirst. Lots of other objects for the ones who love contemporary art. Or you can simply just sit here in the sun, enjoy the view, the beautiful fjord, and look at the swans, one of the symbols of this city.
Yeah, this has definitely become one of the nominators here in Oslo the last couple of decades actually, that we have transferred the waterfront into scenic spots for the public. The industry is long gone, and as you say, we have museums, we have beautiful promenades and walks, we have the fjord, all kinds of bird life like the swans, another symbol for the city, just like the angry boy that we saw in the sculpture garden. And the fjord is a beautiful spot to go swimming, and I know you swim all year round.
Yes, I do, but you know, the temperature of the water in the summertime goes all the way up to 24 degrees Celsius, which is not bad for Scandinavia at all.
No, that's true. It's like being in Greece for us, but in the winter, it's a little bit more fresh, isn't it?
I'd say so.
Yeah, so she's crazy to go swimming in the winter season. But the water is extremely clear, it's very pure. Not only can you go swimming, you can go fishing as well. You can just fish from the docks. In the summer season, beautiful fjord sightseeing as well.
And you actually don't need a license to fish in the fjord.
No, you don't. Just grab your fishing pole when you get here and head down in the early hours.
Absolutely.
Okay, Catherine, do you remember how it was here 20 years ago?
No, not really.
Well, it didn't exist.
That's true.
Yeah, and this has become quite a common denominator here in Oslo the last couple of decades, actually. We've gone through a lot of changes. And here we have a lot of contemporary buildings, architecture mixed in with the old. And compared to our Scandinavian neighbors, it's just a little bit different.
Yeah, and I know these different areas of the city are just a few steps away from each other.
Yeah.
So you can actually start your day in the old part of the city, looking at the castle, for example, and then you can continue to a completely different part that looks like that.
Yes. And then you use the harbor promenade that is actually going to be the longest harbor promenade in the world.
in the world.
Yeah. We'll take you from one side of the city all the way to the other. And along the promenade, you will have coffee shops, you find nice restaurants, ice cream parlors. So not only food, but also different art. So different pieces of art have been exhibited here throughout the years, and a lot of new things happen every single summer.
Well, this is actually the reason why I love Oslo, because there are so many things that are happening outdoor as well.
Yes.
So the weather is fantastic. We do have white nights here in Oslo in June.
We do.
It does feel like the sun never sets down, and then you can simply walk around and look at the beautiful art objects in the city.
Us Norwegians, we feel guilty if we stay inside and it's sunshine. So we need to go out and just enjoy the few hours we have, especially in the winter season when we have around 5 hours of daylight. But as you say, in the summer, almost 24-hour daylight. So that is absolutely magical.
And I heard that it's lots of sculptures in the city center, so we don't need to go far to see something new.
No, it's quite easy to get around. And also spends a lot of money actually on art. So we're quite fond of sculptures here in the city.
And it's safe.
Very safe. So you can go 24/7.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, Catherine, where did you... Okay, Catherine, so we must be looking at the most famous building in Oslo at the moment, right behind us.
And it's all covered with Italian marble, right?
Yes, it is. But what is it?
An opera house.
Of course, not a glacier. But that's the whole idea behind it. That with the marble, it should resemble a glacier. That's the whole idea, anyway. And this is the only opera house in the world where you can actually walk on the rooftop.
Oh, I bet it's beautiful, especially during the summer.
Yes, then we have concerts here, outdoor concerts as well. Then the stage will be on the water and the audience will use the building itself for seating. And we have everything from classical music to Justin Bieber that has been here. And I remember when Bieber was in town, it was tens of thousands of teenagers on top of the opera house. And the entire building was moving in sync with them.
Oh wow, well it was quite a challenge for the architects. I remember there were 13 different nationalities, the experts from all over the world who participated in creating this extraordinary building, right?
Yes, that's correct. And in the end, it was a Norwegian architect company that got the mission. And they also did the memorial site in New York as well. Snøhetta is the name of the company, or Snowcap, which is also the name of a mountain here in our country.
It is impressive. Well, in Oslo there are many hidden treasures, lots of beautiful places that are not very well known, both than you.
Absolutely, and this is one of those. This is the area of Bjørvika, and where we're standing now is actually where it used to be a highway.
Highway?
Yes.
But there is no traffic here now.
No, because it's underneath us in a tunnel system that will take you from east to the west. And this is all part of the city's plan to develop the city into more environmental friendly capital and make the harbor accessible for the public.
I'd say Oslo is just perfect for those who love walking.
Oh yeah, that's true, because the harbor promenade goes by here. That will take you also from east to the west.
Will you join me?
Let's go.
So, what a day!
Absolutely. We hope you enjoy the little tour of our city.
I've learned something new about Norway and Norwegian capital.
And, of course, we hope it sparked something inside of you that makes you want to come here to our beautiful city and country. And
I know we will be waiting here for you.
definitely.
So, hope to see you soon.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.